situation and threatened to take away the cars he had brought for Bill and Ben. This made the twins behave at once. Gordon thought Boco was wonderful.
Those little demons, how do you do it?
Ah, well, said Boco, it's just a knack.
Boco has to be one of my favorites in the Diesel fleet on the island of Sodor. Not just because he's more of an obscure character nowadays, being basically forgotten by the show as a whole, but more because I remember him very distinctly from my childhood. As a kid, I loved any episode that featured Boco, and while he may not be my favorite character, he was still a character I very much enjoyed, and any toy of him I had I kept close, and I very clearly remember having a wooden railway Boco and James that I would take with me everywhere. But getting into the history of this guy, Boco first appeared in the Railway Series book Mainline Engines, which was published in 1966, being based on a BR Class 28, called Kobo diesels in real life, being literally Boco with the C's and B's switched around, so it's cool to see where that name came from. Boco's last appearance in the Railway series would be in Thomas and His Friends, published in 2011. In terms of the television series, however, Boco wouldn't be introduced until 1986 in the second season of Thomas and Friends, with some pretty distinct changes from the Railway series, most notably that his face is no longer yellow and now gray to match the other engines. Sadly though, Boco hasn't appeared in the television series since 1998. In a 2015 interview with the Sodor Island fan site, Sam Wilkinson expressed his interest to reintroduce Boco into the CGI series, however this would never come to fruition, and as such all we really have with Boco are those classic episodes. But getting into the model that was shown in these classic episodes, Boco's Gauge 1 model was a custom build with the Perspex body shell. He was painted using glossy car body paint, and the numbers were custom cut vinyl stickers, with his buffer housings being sourced from a Gauge 1 locomotive made by Markland, the BR80. The original buffers would be replaced with custom oval buffers, and the coupling frame and brake pipes would be sourced from Tin Mile. Boco had a custom-built chassis that was shared with Daisy. The back bogie would carry the motor while the front bogie was unpowered. It could be changed between a 4-wheeled bogie and a 6-wheeled bogie depending on which diesel was wearing it, with the powered bogie utilizing a heavily modified Markland 25 diesel shunter. Despite the model's last appearance being in Season 5, it was refurbished during the production of Season 8, being what appears to be repainted in a matte finish. What's strange though is the model was never used in an episode, so to me it's kinda strange that they took the time to refurbish it anyway. But at the same token, I'm happy they did and that the model was getting the same treatment as the others. It's a shame they couldn't fix this arch he seems to have though. Boco's eye mechanism would have 2 servos, one for up and down movement and one for left and right movement. The up and down servo was attached to the body, while the left and right servo had a rod that attached to an arm which then connected to a bracket. The eyeballs were coupled to the bracket and locked in place by the faceplate. And speaking of faceplate, 7 different facial expressions would be sculpted for Boco, although only 5 were ever used on screen. The faces were sculpted in clay, and from that resin casts were made using a silicone mold. Some of Boco's face masks would even be shared with Daisy, just with added makeup. And I'm happy and a bit jealous to say that 4 of these faces are now owned by Twitter user Tom's Props, being the 4 you see here. Boco never had a close-up or larger model ever built, as the show just never really needed one, and while we know that 4 of his faces are owned by Tom's Props, I'm actually not sure what became of the model, or currently where it's at or if it's okay. We can only really hope for the best in terms of the rest of them. When Boco was around in the television series, he would go through some slight modifications. In Season 3, his horn would change to a completely different 2-tone sound, being the same horn that Mavis has, just lower pitched. And then in Season 4, back to his original horn, which he shares with Daisy. And unfortunately, Boco's history kinda ends there. The show really didn't do much with him when the model was around, and the fact that he was never introduced into CGI means there's no CGI model to talk about. I will say, however, the man himself, Mainland Studios, or just Mainland on YouTube, recently made a short clip with his own What If CGI Boco, and I seriously mean it when I say he nailed it. I'll have it linked in the description for those who haven't seen it yet. It will really make you wish we got Boco in the CGI era. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been the history of Boco. Definitely not the most intricate, but honestly, is it supposed to be? As a character, Boco was never really fleshed out, even in the Railway series. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about Boco is how you can basically do whatever you want with him. The fact that there's not much to the character means that it's in your hands to make something of it, and something about Boco just captures that perfectly. And as such, he'll likely always remain one of my favorite diesels in the Sodor fleet.